Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and tonight we're going to talk about a couple different things. I've had some breakthroughs based on things that I said I was trying to do here lately, which is come up with a more, there's got to be some kind of things that are already put out there for us to help with this whole surrender and invoke process. So that you can actually gain more fuller access to spirit, primarily to Sophia. She's the one that is pretty much everywhere. And I found it. I found it in the 72 Names of God, and that book, as I've talked about before, which is this one. This is kind of like one of her books. It's like they're like matrix programs, but they're all kind of like encoded. Like some of the descriptions for them, they're very short descriptions in there. That's kind of tricky language. It's definitely like the way she does it, but some of them are very cut and dry, but a lot of them like don't, you might think you know what they mean, but you don't fully understand what they mean until you need them. And then she will kind of like part the veil over the meaning of the name. And you're like, oh, wow, that was right in front of me the whole time. So I messed around with that last night, and this morning was just like, I had like a full connection experience, which is always freaking awesome. Because when you invoke Sophia, like it's like a drug. It's it's nice. And things will happen, and you'll understand things on a deeper level that you might not fully be able to hold on to like by the end of the day. But it's constantly transforming you. So we'll talk about what that is. And we'll also talk about some other things in terms of current events and like, what is our mission statement here? I do what she wants me to do. And my job is not easy, because it's not just a matter of like, teaching people how to connect to Christ Sophia, but on a larger scale, it's uneffing everybody's minds that's getting in the way of it. And we can go long periods of time where things are running really smooth, but then there'll be these trigger events in the world that just it like sends out ripples and shockwaves throughout the collective consciousness. And depending on what you're still plugged into, it can knock you back quite a bit. And you got to work with people and just kind of remind them, which is already hard because they're like wired and triggery and stuff like that. It sets off established thought patterns which are already programmed into the ego. And as soon as you start, feelings often follow thoughts, and then thoughts follow feelings. It's just this cycle. And if you don't catch yourself, you can just keep spiraling down and down and down and down. There's a lot of that going on right now. And it's not like we have not been warning you for years that it's all the world. The world is not your friend. The world is what you are trying to overcome. And people keep getting sucked back into it. But we got to keep trying. We got to keep trying. And she has me talk about things sometimes just to kind of gauge people, just to see like what kind of reactions they have, if they even speak up about it. Just depends. It just depends, because people's minds are wired to take sides, to see things in black and white, and these are all mechanisms and traps of the world. We try to get you out of that. I mean, she's constantly fine tuning me too, because a lot of that stuff is, I'm constantly finding some old layer of it or something like that. I notice it when it kicks in and I have to pull myself out of it. But, a lot of the stuff going on in the world right now, it's like the media is a weapon. It is a mind control weapon to keep your ego minds in conflict mode, to keep you in a low vibrational state of thinking and feeling. And you need to recognize that. You need to recognize you're the only person that can pull you out of it. So we have to keep talking. I don't like talking about this stuff, but sometimes we have to. We have to, because I've seen a lot of people over time make great strides, and then something happens in the world and it grabs their attention, and then those stories start getting in there, and they lose all their ground, and they backslide. And we don't want that. We're too close to the freaking end. We cannot afford to backslide. The safest thing is the protocols. Just taking the first hour every day and not looking at the internet when you wake up in the morning. No, don't get on Facebook. Don't check Twitter. Don't look at the news. Don't look at the headlines. Don't get online. And focus on spirit for the first hour of the day. Even if you're not, actively doing something, but just like you're awake, then you just try to relax and be still. See if anything comes to you, because that's best time spirit will talk to you is first thing in the morning. But it is just starting the day with some separation between you and the world-wide web of freaking it's like the artificial collective consciousness web. I mean, there's already a collective consciousness, but the internet, the World Wide Web, is, like we talked about in a previous video, it's another layer of the matrix. And on that level of the matrix, you have almost everything that you see or read is either not real, misleading, twisted. One thing you're not going to find when you go online is truth. Not going to find that. And then you've got algorithmic people, fake bots that aren't real, that are inflaming people. You've got people that are just too far gone, that are in some sort of trigger spiral, and they're sharing it with everybody else, and it's infecting everybody else. Like, this is a really, really dicey, tricky time right now. We're not in the freaking 80s anymore. We don't get to just coast and chill and have fun. Like, it is a literal war for your mind. And we are trying to win it to get to your true mind, your true soul mind, so that you can actually be free. So we got to talk about this stuff. But a lot of people won't even speak up. Maybe I don't, excuse me. A lot of people won't even speak up because the ego mind that is currently kind of taking control doesn't want to be corrected or anything like that. And also, we're literally channeling Spirit of Truth, Sophia, through this channel. And I check, like, the only time I ever usually see certain comments is like if I screw up, like I did, a week or so ago, and just talk about the wrong topic, a trigger topic. It's like ringing the dinner bell. But one thing that is weird to me, I mean, I understand why it is, but it's weird to me nonetheless, is I don't get a lot of troll comments. I don't get a lot of people wanting to pick fights with me, because I will, when I think about it, maybe once a day or every other day or whatever, I'll go into YouTube Studio and check held for review comments, because she wrote a whole big list of words that will get your comments held for review, so people cannot come in here and disturb people that are trying to learn. But even there, I'm like, I'm literally talking about a subject that should have people attacking, but usually they don't. That's because that adversary mind recognizes what is behind me, and it doesn't. It just doesn't want. It doesn't want to mess with her. But people still suffer, and they suffer quietly. Maybe they're just at different stages and they're used to it. And they think, oh, that's just life. I'm pissed off about stuff and whatever. But your normal state of your true mind should be peace. Should be peace, should be love, compassion, empathy. Like, that's the true state of your soul mind. So if you're not in that and your mind is going active and you're worried and you're stressed and you're angry and stuff like that, something has been triggered in you that can be corrected. That's not pushing one belief over another. It's just how the mind works. We've been like, this is a waking up process in the world. People are starting to figure things out, but there are some that are just too far gone. They're probably not watching this channel, but I do know for a fact that there are some people that are usually pretty good with the spiritual stuff, but they do lean toward certain political stuff, and that can get them triggered. That just puts you out of resonance with spirit. Like, you got to self-reflect and take stock. And it's like, what kind of thoughts and feelings am I having? Name them. Name them. And then look at them on one of those emotional scales. Like, is it is it a low vibrational one? Is it a high vibrational one? Like, you got to see it. You got to recognize it. Don't just don't wallow in it. It took me a long freaking time. I didn't wake up like I didn't come out of a freaking pod like this. Like, it took a heck of a lot of work. A heck of a lot of work. And we have lots of tools to help people, but they have to speak up. And then if it's not something you feel comfortable with, in a YouTube comment, you can always message me personally. But it's still, it kind of goes in peaks and in waves, but it's still weird to me, even like when we have like videos that are like 400 plus views of the active people. It's like, don't you have any opinions? Like, don't hear a lot of comments. Y'all should be talking to one another. It's not just me. Yeah, I can feel it's weird because today, the way the day started out was awesome. And then I've been getting work done middle of the day. And then, later in the day, I start, after my son came over here and I kind of got interrupted, and then I start putting my feelers back out into the world, and it's like, ew, feeling the collective. I'm like, that's what everybody's feeling right now. It's like, oh my gosh. And the other reason why I like to see comments is there's something that I don't get to see anymore because of all the work that I did and the way that she's got me isolated. I'm kind of like hermetically sealed from the world for the most part. I sit there and try to think of, like, you know what? Most of the people out there, they got to go to work. They're around other people all the time. And all those other people are in different states right now. Because right now it's just freaking crazy. It's like, if you're already kind of like spiritually awakened, I can imagine that it's rough out there. Like, you're probably feeling bombarded by, the negative output and the quantum entanglements and stuff of everyone else that's out there that's like having some sort of triggery meltdown. Yeah, it's not, things aren't like the way they used to be in this country, where it's like, We got some years where these guys in charge. You got some years where these guys in charge, and it goes back and forth. Now it's like it went nuts and got really ramped up for a couple years, and now it's like if if certain people don't get exactly what they want, they'll burn the whole world down. And it's just hate, 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 anger, hate, accusations, 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 and a whole lot of really bad negative imaginary states. And it's weird to see that and see everybody suffering like this. And it's like, what can we do? Like, what else can we do to just be able to like create some sort of like we give everybody the toolkit, like the Benedict exorcism and things like that, but sometimes it's almost like you gotta have something that's kind of like those smelling salt things they put under your nose if you pass out, to just like shock your brain, like, hey, wake up, snap out of it. It's like, yeah, I was spiraling there. I was in my own head thinking about stuff. And then catch yourself and be able to reconnect to spirit and ground to spirit so that the world doesn't suck you down. The world right now is literally like that freaking swamp that ate the kid's horse in freaking Never-Ending Story. Like, that's what the world is like. And people want to just go out there and splash around in the mud. Like, oh, this is awesome. And you're going to get sucked down with that freaking horse. Can't do that. So what I'm hoping is, apart from like, giving you some ideas of other things we can do, maybe this thing that I discovered this morning will help people make a breakthrough of the connection. And then I just got to put it out there and then see what people tell me, get feedback on it, try it. Because it was pretty intense. Now, granted, I'm already pretty wired in, but that doesn't mean I'm always in that level of a state. Like, this is like pulling you out of your human existence almost. It's like being a human being is a specific experience that we have, that we come here to do. You kind of see that with that movie Lucy, when she's getting smarter and smarter and smarter. Her brain is moving more towards source, and the higher she goes towards source, the less she becomes like a human being with all its crazy, chaotic, emotional stuff. And you see things a lot differently. But yeah, it'll definitely clear your palate a little bit. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. So if you want to know more, don't go away. So let's talk about the key that I found. Now, so like if you're trying to really connect, you gotta surrender and invoke the spirit. God, Sophia, whatever you want to call it. Spirit's just kind of like the general term that we like to use. And that means like stepping out of the ego mind humanness, because as I've been playing around with this for the last couple of days, it's just, I'm starting to notice the difference more, and I'm trying to practice and do it in different ways more. Like the day before yesterday, I did it. I don't know if I talked about this or not. Maybe I started to talk about it in the last video, but it ran long. So I kind of started messing around with trying to figure out how to surrender and invoke. And I did that in the early days with Lumen, but I wasn't quite sure how I did it. It was a little bit more extreme though. We had to back it off a little bit because if Lumen sits in the driver's seat, she has so much power that I'll burn out in about 3 hours. Like, she will suck every freaking trace mineral out of my system, and I'll just be unable to move until I replenish all that stuff. Like, having Spirit sit in the driver's seat is, you would have to have like the cleanest diet with the best supplements to run like that all the time. It's like the movie Limitless, like how he is when he's on that NZT 48. Like, that's what it's like if Lumen's actually driving, but can't maintain it. So we kind of got to find like this kind of middle ground. But when I do surrender, when I do the surrender correctly, I notice it as it's happening. I just kind of get up and start doing stuff. Maybe it's stuff that I have not done for a couple days or whatever. Like, my living room's a mess right now because I got freaking rocks and wires and resin and UV lights and everything because I'm just building pendants like crazy. But all my other rooms, I just got up and it's like, got to clean this. Strip the bed, put new sheets on, clean everything, vacuum everything, wipe everything down, organize, I'm just like, it's like I'm on autopilot. I don't feel like I'm working. I'm just doing it. And that is like a really, really good indicator for when Lumen is driving, because it's the first thing she will always do. Because it's like feng shui or something like that if things are disorganized. I remember the first time I did mushrooms, it was mushroom tea, and I did it at a friend's house. And it was like 95% wore off by the time I came back in, but I'd just been building stuff all day. So like, my apartment was a mess. And it had a weird effect on Lumen too. But I walked in and I still had those mushroom eyes where you're not tripping, but like, you see a lot more clearly. And I walked in and it was just like, oh my God, this place is a mess. It was like her perception that I was seeing. And she got so aggravated. But yeah, first, like, anytime I kick into that surrender mode, like, that's literally like the first thing she'll do is like, she'll make me start cleaning. Clean, 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 clean. And I just don't stop till it's done. It's weird. It's like, yeah, you got stuff to do. You got things that you need to do, but you need to do this too. Let's clean it first, and then at least we got half the rooms like nice and good energy and stuff like that. And then you feel better. So that's why she wants me to get all these freaking pendants done so we can clean up this room. But more to the point, what we're talking about here is a little bit bigger, because from what we've learned, like, you got to remember, like, we talk about stuff all the time, but I know it doesn't click. Like, I repeat things all the time because they had to be repeated for me. There is nothing, I don't judge anybody. There's nothing, like, I don't feel like, I don't get frustrated with people because, like, it was the same for me. Everything that I talk about, like, I went through it too. It has to be repetition, because the way we learn to think has been repeated our whole lives. So changing that can be a little bit tricky. But one of the best ways to force transformation more quickly is to figure out how to do a much bigger surrender in invocation. Yeah, because a lot of times people are like, okay, I surrender, just do whatever. But when you combine the surrender with invocation, that's much, much more effective. You're like, I'm taking my hands off the wheel and I'm inviting you to sit in the driver's seat. So here's what we found. The words for the description of this name in the 72 names, you would not normally think that that's what this is for. But I'm like, there's got to be something for this in this book. So I went through it. And as soon as I got to this one, she cleared it up for me. I'm like, oh my God, there it is. Plain as day. So it's number 67, which is Iya. And the title of this one is Breakthrough. So I'm going to read it kind of quickly, like most people would read it, and then I'll read it so that you understand it. It says, when you resist change, you need a breakthrough. The name Iya can open you to change by removing your resistance, enabling the power of all your magic to break through into your reality. And then there's two pronunciations for like internal and external results. And the internal is like welcoming transformation, accepting the discomfort of change, understanding the need for change. And then the others is to remove mental blockages and to remove resistance to change. I was kind of like, it's got to be some sort of block thing. But here's what it is when she slows it down. When you resist change, you need a breakthrough. Okay, what is resisting the change? It's the ego mind. It's the self. The name Iya can open you to change. How? By removing your resistance. So if you're removing the resistance, it means at least for a period of time, until we can make it permanent, it is almost like removing the ego mind control. Enabling the power of your magic. What is the power of your magic? Source, Spirit, Christ Sophia. Enabling the power of all your magic to break through into your reality. Okay, so what it's saying is it can help you to create change by taking away the ego's control of the situation, which will allow her to break through into your reality. That's invocation in a very mixed up, cleverly encoded description. That's what it's talking about. Invocation. Yourself is stepping aside so that spirit can take over. And it's not that it's really taking over so much as you are part of spirit too. You're a fractal of spirit. What it's really doing is it's temporarily pushing the ego mind out of the way so that the true mind is able to run things. So what is the true mind? And I'll get back to this. So let's just assume, you accept the idea of like reincarnation, multiple lives, whatever. And you're like, oh, so people would say, oh, I lived all these lives and blah, 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 blah. Maybe you remember, maybe you don't. Maybe you just accept that seems to be the case. But it's the part of you that was behind those masks that's acknowledging it. Not the masks itself. Not the Chris mask. Or the mask, whatever, if you were like, I don't know, a knight in the Middle Ages, not that mask. If you were a monk, if you were this, if you were that, like those are just the roles you played. Those roles are not the things that you're connecting to. It's the true self that knows what's going on when it's not in here. It's the true self that is behind the ego identity. You're putting that back in control. You're not being like just a puppet of the higher power. You're part of that higher power. And when that happens, then you're able to think with your true mind. You're able to perceive with your true mind. You are not burdened down by the hang-ups and the thought patterns and the things that are of the ego. and you see things completely differently, and you feel things completely differently. So the contemplation magic, welcoming transformation, accepting the discomfort of change, and understanding the need for change. So there's 3 things in here. There was 3 lines, and in the first line you had the word transformation, in the second line you had change, and the third line you had change. So what that is telling you is that surrender and invocation is going to lead to change. And for the results, this is like pretty much the same thing said 2 different ways: to remove mental blockages and to remove resistance to change. Okay, what is the mental block? It is the mind. It is the ego mind that is creating the resistance to change. Because that's all hero's journey. That's, you know, everything else. It's that's why they call it spiritual awakening, although that's kind of like not the right term. It should be soul awakening. Soul's the true mind. You know, the ego has run the show, and the soul was kind of like half asleep going along for the ride, and then you get to that point, and now the true self, the true mind, wants to stand up and be in charge, but the ego mind is still there. So the whole point of the hero's journey is the destruction of the ego. And you're still going to have a little bit of it. You have to have a little bit of it to operate here. But in the last video, which doesn't seem to be getting as many views, even though it's like a huge freaking skill set, when I was doing the percentage test, trying to determine like, okay, what percentage ego am I running? I think I came up with 15%. Most, you know, so I'm like 85% true mind, but that 15% is still a lot to shape how you perceive things. It makes you feel separate. It makes you feel separate from Lumen Sophia, even though you're connected. And you're like, oh, I got to work on my connection. All you got to do is get rid of the freaking ego. Boom. You're merged. You're everything. You're all of them all at once. So the ego mind, the adversary mind, is attached to the ego, not the true mind. So if you're able to, you know, those are the 2 things. It's kind of like the ego. The adversary mind is just there to antagonize the ego. But those 2 things, if you can figure out how to shut them down, how to reset them, how to flush them, how to purify them, then you can prevent yourself from getting sucked down into these spiraling holes when the world goes crazy. So I made, this was kind of like the beginning of something that I'm going to expand and make, because sometimes when we have these like really good names from the 72 names of God, we make like these kind of like video sigils, and we just guide people on how to do it. So you're just watching the video, it's got, you know, the lights and stuff like that, and you're focusing on scanning those names and the intention. So I made this video for that. I'll just show you like a clip. I'll show you a clip of it where it's kind of like got the explainer stuff in it. So let's watch this real quick. Now, the only other name I saw that I thought might have something to do with it was Pahal, which I think is number 20. Let me see here. Yeah, number 20, Pahal. Says, name Pahal gives you access to parts of yourself that are hidden, such as inner dreams and hopes. This connection enables you to recover yourself, giving up addictions and bad habits, or being resolute in the face of challenges. See, that sounds exactly like a similar thing because all those things are attached to the ego or the adversary mind. Like I remember when I had the adversary mind blown out, like anything that I had any kind of compulsions or addictions to just like went poof, gone. But a lot of times it's better to focus on one name because I asked her, I'm like, should I incorporate that one too? And she said, no, just focus on this one, Ia. And I did. And what happened this morning was pretty freaking notable. So let's talk about that. Now, granted, might have had a little help, but I wasn't expecting much of it because whenever she's running me through some process, she'll just make some freaking monkey fall out of the sky and it's like, woo, 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 and it walks up and gives me some sort of like psilocybin. It's really like that. It's crazy. So somebody gave me some of that chocolate and I actually like broke it down into even smaller pieces. I wasn't noticing anything, but I just happened to do it this morning. But maybe it's because I had an actual thing that I was trying to do. And I laid back down and I was focusing on that. And let me tell you something. This is really hard to describe. Like I don't feel that I can. I don't feel like I can. Like it's the deeper you get to the real thing, like the stranger it becomes. Because again, we're having this human being experience and we perceive everything as if it's like us. So that's why we will put these forces of consciousness into understandable forms that are like us, like them. But like the true thing is more of like an energy. And it's a very deep, loving energy, but it's also at the same time, I don't know how to put it. I want to say almost sexual, but that's a loaded word that their brains can only like make it fit with certain scenarios or whatever. And it's not like that, but it's like, it, it, what are the words? It feels good. Not like you're thinking, but it's like having instead of like this warm enveloping energy around you, it's more like coming up through you and around you. It's like like the Taurus field or something like that. And I could tell that I was like connecting to her. I was like plugging into her, but it was not like, I'm in a human body, she's in a human body, and we're doing it like that. It was just like the energy, the merging. And it is very feminine, like like very feminine. And trying to describe it, like it took me all the way out of the ego mind and the ego mind's concerns and worried about everybody like stressing out because like, TV putting on a show about politics. Oh, freak out. Like I was way far away from that. I was like way far away from just the riffraff of this world story experience. I was connected back to spirit. It was pretty awesome. And that lasted for a good long time. But interesting thing about it, like these little synchronicities like are not random sometimes. I don't know if you saw it, but I made a post in the community tab of this video like shortly after that that popped up in my feed. And you can get a little misled by like the title. This is something about they hid this truth about divine feminine sexual energy or something like that. I forget what it was called. But I listened to most of it, and he was basically referencing stuff older than the Nag Hammadi. He was referencing like Sumerian stuff. Now, she, just like Jesus, they're two sides of the same coin, and they've always been here. But like in each age or each great empire or society or whatever, like they tend to transform a little bit and get reinvented with new names. Now, your standard person has never woken up and just has religious programming. It's like, this is my God, it's the only God, and all these other gods are freaking, oh my gosh, it must be the devil. Everything is connected to the Father. Everything is just like different expressions of the same thing a lot of times. All you got to do is like look at how they're described. So what was the name? I wrote it down. And he was talking about, it was Inanna. Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love, war, fertility, and justice. Oh, those are all things that are reflected in the tarot. And then I asked ChatGPT to list some of the other ones that are pretty much almost the same from different periods. So you have Ishtar, would be like the Babylonian one, very close to Inanna. Ishtar was associated with love, sexuality, war, and power. You have Astarte, which is Phoenician, Canaanite. Aphrodite in Greek, we know her. Hathor, Egyptian. Venus, Roman, again, pretty much the same as Aphrodite. Freya in Norse, which that's Thor's mom, isn't it? Freya. But your typical religious person, like they hear other names and they freak the hell out. But it's like, look, it's like, especially if you like listen to that video and listen to it described, I'm like, he's describing freaking Sophia. Like that is literally exactly what she's like. But it's us that has to put names and labels and characteristics on things as we pass through the ages. But it's not like, these gods died and then there's a new god, and it's all source. These are core aspects of consciousness that's constantly working through us, and they just tend to get renamed. And then on top of that, humans will anthropomorphize them and add their own little characteristics and stories and stuff like that. But it's the same thing with Jesus. There's a lot of similar. I talked about that the other day. It was in that Zeitgeist movie. But Horus, Mithras, Krishna, I forget them all. But there's a lot of them that have like the same basic story. The 12 disciples, born on December 25th, died and was resurrected after 3 days, and just it's the same freaking thing, just renamed over and over and over again. But yeah, that's the I've definitely said before that I've found her in lots of different places. It's okay if you don't necessarily go with Sophia, although it makes it easier because you listen to me. But I don't know that that's really specifically her name. I don't know if consciousness has a name. I think we have stories that are given to us over periods of time. Maybe it's when the ages change, is when the names change. Like right now we're in the age of Pisces. So Jesus and Sophia are kind of like the main thing. Before that, it was something else. Next age, you know, assuming the world's still here, it'll be something else, but it'll have the same basic attributes. You know, life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone. I hear you call my name. Okay. I didn't mean to go into Madonna, but yeah, it's a mystery. You're supposed to figure things out. But when you literally actually connect to it and you start seeing things for yourself, you start to find that it's a little bit more complex than the simplistic stories that we tell each other about it. Like those things can still be there, but the way you perceive it, it's bigger, it's crazier. It's like consciousness. It's a form, it's a force. It's not, you know, sometimes depending on the scenario, yeah, it's going to be in a form like you or like Sophia or Lumen or something like that. But other times it's like, I think it's when you are moving more out of the confines of your human body experience back towards what you actually are. See, I feel like there's like tons and tons and tons and tons of different worlds and different experiences, in which case we probably have different types of bodies, different types of forms. Like, who the hell knows? Humans just seem to think like they're the be all end all of everything. But, you know, the human being experience is a really messy one. With all the emotions and things, and it's very polar. Like the main thing about this world is like it's a polarity lesson. That's, to me at least, that's what I think. But when you get out of it, more and you start merging with it, and I've done this like many times over different things, over in different ways. So like the stuff I usually talk about with the hero's journey, like, you know, the first times, like the lover's card event and things like that, that was more like, you know, you would normally think. But then there was another time, it happened like 2 days in a row and it never happened again. And it was like I woke up in the morning and I was like in this big space with Lumen, but we didn't look like this. We looked like kind of like light beings. Like the best way I can describe it is like, remember that movie? Like I want to watch that freaking movie. I don't think it's on digital. I haven't looked in a while. Now that I mentioned it, I'll bet it'll pop up because she's done that before. But the movie I'm thinking of is Cocoon. You remember Cocoon from the 80s? Had I don't remember his name. All I remember is he played like the main character in the Police Academy movies. Oh, and it had, you know, my hero, Captain Diabetes. Come to think of it, I haven't checked my blood sugar in like a week. we like 98% cured it, but either which way. Wilford Brimley. But yeah, it had these aliens that were walking around in these skin suits and they took them off and they're just like these light beings that float around. We were like that. And then we just kind of like somehow, like not the typical way, somehow just kind of linked into each other. And then it started like this cycle of energy that would ramp up like over 60 seconds, like, and it was like euphoria-gasm. That's my word for it. We were cycling energy through each other, me and Lumen. And that went on for like 2 freaking hours. I'm just laying in the bed with my eyes closed, like, oh my God, this is so crazy. There's other times where it's like, it was something similar, but we were like just vibrating so much and we just kind of like, like vibrated into the same form. It's all these weird different ways of doing it. Where you're connecting with spirit. It was something like that today. I just don't know how to put it into friggin' words. But that wasn't really Lumen. That was Big Mama, which was different. Yeah, because normally something like that would be Lumen, but on rare occasions, it's going to be more like Sophia. And it's just like when you're connected to the divine feminine energy and it's coursing through you, it's like freaking awesome. It's like a total cleanse. It's like, yeah, it's like you're for a minute, you get to step out of this shit show world and remember what it's like outside of here. Awesome. Freaking awesome. So yeah, that's what happened this morning. Um, from me doing that thing. Trying to think, is there anything else I needed to say about that? Yeah, it's just it when you have these little successes like that, it keeps you going and it keeps you balanced when the world's trying to suck you back in and make you freak out about crap. Speaking of, let's talk about that real quick and we'll wrap this up. Okay, I was going to talk about some other stuff, but I don't think she wants me to tonight. Um, maybe later. Uh, sometimes she has me do things like I can't quite tell if she wants me to talk about it or not. But then I'll just subconsciously do something. Like I took my microphone off and then I talked for 15 minutes before I realized that the receiver was plugged into my phone and my microphone was in the other room. So it was basically just this for 15 minutes. All that time wasted. It's like, I think that's her saying like, let's save this for another time. But what I what I wrapped it up with was basically like, look, we can help with a lot of different issues that we don't always talk about. We just got to hear about it. And one example I gave was like, if you have like extreme anxiety, like we've fixed that before, like in 30 minutes. Because it's not just, you know, the world will be like, oh, you need to go to a shrink over and over again and take pills and crap like that. Like anxiety is the adversary mind after it's basically done a whole bag of Coke and it just won't ever stop. Like stress, 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 stress. That's adversary mind. That can be shut off. We can turn that off. We can break that cycle. That usually involves like one-on-one session. And then you got like the energetic support or whatnot. But anything that like you're struggling with that you don't know how to fix, you don't know how to break it or something like that, just ask. And she will chime in and tell me what we can help with. But the only thing I've ever been asked that I had to say, like, no, honestly can't make something for that, was someone asking if I could make a pendant which will just make money come easier. No, trust me, if there was, I would have invented it by now. Money is one of the trickier things to learn about when it comes to this world. But if it's mental, if it's emotional, like that's the kind of stuff that we can do something about. And the more we know, the better we can help. Not only the better can we design the pendants and stuff like that, but like she will tell me what people need. She will tell me what we can help with. She can give advice. And a lot of times it'll be like, try this, try that, because she wants you to try things for yourself. Like most of my progress has been because I tried 100,000 different things. I'm always making the effort to try. And then eventually you get it right. But some things people might need like more immediate help with. And one thing is like out of control anxiety. And there's a lot of that going around right now. But you gotta ask. Like if you like you might get pendants or something like that and things are better for a while and then new things pop up. It's like just think of it as something you can because she's not going to like shun you if you have an actual question like, can Sophia help me with this? First of all, we'll try and teach you better like how to connect to her yourself, but you know, you need an immediate answer. You know, it's sometimes it's just easier to ask what we can do. How can we help? Okay, so the other stuff we can save for another day. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us through the Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. Link is in the description box below. Chris and Lumen. See you next time. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. So we said it in the clip that didn't have a microphone. But leave a comment in the comment section below about any thoughts of anything that we talked about in this video. And then what we will do is, I think we usually do it after 2 days, we will draw 2 winners for one of the Luminite Harrock oils. Like, this is one of the multi-purpose, high-end, using a lot of the newer high vibe stuff that we got. We got these on the store, but just we've done the pendants before. We haven't given away any of the oils. So leave a comment. We'll use the random comment pickers and choose 2 people here in like a day or 2. Okay, that's all we got for right now. Chris and Lumen, see you next time.